Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on CELPIP Live. You know we start each episode with some trivia. Here's your question for the day. Who was Agnes MacPhail? Let me repeat that. Who was Agnes MacPhail? Let me know the answer in the comments below. You can also share this image and your answer on Instagram with the hashtag CELPIP Live, and we may feature it on our feed. I will reveal the response at the end of our segment. For now, let's start our show. CELPIP Live is an interactive YouTube series made to help CELPIP test takers understand more about the CELPIP test. If you're about to write the test or you're preparing for one, please subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as we go live. In today's episode, we're discussing task 2 of the writing section. Brandy is back and ready to practice with you, so let's go say hello to her. Hi, Brandy. Welcome back. How are you doing?
Hello, Ashwati. I am quite well. Thank you. It's great to see you back on a nice, beautiful Tuesday morning here in Vancouver.
Yes, it is really warm and sunny here. I mean, well, it's sunny here. I don't know about warm.
Yeah, warmer than other parts of the country, maybe.
True. That's true. How's the weather where you guys are? So let me know in the comments. Anyway, Brandy, I'm gonna let you get started. I just want to let people know, those of you who are watching, always good to have a note paper and pencil with you. And if you have any questions for Brandy, any doubts, please leave them in the chat and Brandy will answer them once her presentation is done.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. So give me one moment to do that. And we'll begin. So yes, we're going to focus today on task 2 of the CELPIP writing test. So a few things before we get into our practice question today. I just wanted to mention about the CELPIP writing test in general. The questions that you'll be asked to write about are always going to be about everyday work or community situations. So you'll never be asked to write about things that are extremely personal or controversial. So I wanted to reassure our viewers about that. For task 2, you will have a time limit. So there is 26 minutes in total to complete the entire piece of writing. And there's always a word count for CELPIP. And that word count will be between 150 and 200 words. Now there is a word counter right on the computer screen as you're typing. So this will keep you on track and help you determine when you're fairly close to being finished. Now I'd like to look at a real CELPIP test question today. This is from a past test. We're going to read over the question together, and then I'd like to generate some ideas for writing with all of you at home. Once we have those ideas, we're actually going to write out the response. And at the end, we're going to take some time to proofread our answer. So really what we're doing today is the entire writing process that I hope you use as well when you write your own CELPIP writing test. So this test question, as you can see, is a city development survey. I'll read out loud the background if you'd like to follow. It says that you live in a small town of 10,000 people. A large green area in the center of town is undeveloped. The city has sent out an opinion survey to see what residents would like to have built in that area. Choose the option that you prefer. Why do you prefer your choice? Explain the reasons for your choice. Write about 150 to 200 words. Now, what you see on the bottom part of the screen are the 2 options that the test instructions are giving us. So we need to look at both options. They're labeled A and B, and we need to decide which one we want to write about today to answer this question. So if we choose option A, we'll be writing to the city to ask them to use that green space in town as a shopping complex. And the test instructions give us some details that we will use in our writing. So should we choose option A, we'll be explaining to the city that we will have restaurants, a large supermarket, and a movie theater included there. If we choose option B, though, we'll be asking the city to build a recreational park in the middle of town. And this park, we're told, is going to have a sports complex, a large green area, and a small petting zoo. So the very first thing we need to do, of course, before we start writing anything, is we need to make our choice. So using your mouse on the computer, you're actually going to click in the bulleted point beside whichever option you want to write about. So for today's practice, we're going to choose option B. we're going to write to the city and ask them to turn that space into a recreational park. Now, you need to choose one of these two options on the test, by the way. You can't make up your own idea. It has to be one of these two. You can't argue both sides. That would be a very poorly supported answer. You want to select one choice and support it as the best option. So that's what we're going to start doing right now. Now, going into this test, we need to understand where our score is going to come from. So when the raters read over your writing later on, they're looking for 4 different skill sets, for 4 different categories or dimensions, as we like to call them. The first thing they're going to assess is your content and your coherence. So really what they're looking to see is how many main ideas you present that answer the question at hand. So for our writing today, since we're asking the city to construct a recreational park, the raters will look to see how many reasons why we feel that park would be the best choice. So those would be our main reasons. Once we've established those reasons, we then need to come up with very specific examples to further extend and support those reasons. That's what this first dimension is all about. So the quality of our writing is improved with more specific detail and more interesting, sometimes descriptive language as well. We're going to organize these ideas as well into proper paragraphs, and there will be an obvious logical order. So a first point, a second point, a conclusion. All of these things are considered. So really, the entire piece of writing should flow from beginning to end and connect very smoothly together. This is the coherence or the unity of the piece. So before we start typing then, in our minds at the very least, if not on paper, we're going to create just a very quick scratch outline. I think for your survey question for task 2, creating a 4-paragraph structure is more than enough. The very first paragraph, it's not really a paragraph at all. I think it will be more of an opening statement. We're going to write a sentence here that identifies our choice. So in this case, the recreational park is our option. And we're going to come up with 2 main reasons why it's a good choice. And those 2 reasons will come from our own imaginations. Once we've got those 2 reasons, we're going to discuss them in further detail in the middle of the survey. This second paragraph will discuss only that first main reason and provide some very specific details of support. The next paragraph, paragraph 3, it's going to then discuss that second main reason that we've already identified in our opening, and once again, provide lots of details. That's where most of your time writing is going to be spent. By the time you're ready to offer a concluding paragraph, really all you're doing is restating your opinion. You're summarizing those main points that you made to really emphasize to the city that your choice is a good one, and you're hoping that the city will honor it as it builds in the middle of town. So let's look at where these ideas will come from. So how are we going to decide what our main reasons for this recreational park will be? I think you'll get these ideas by returning to the test instructions themselves. So this is the option we've already selected to write about, the recreational park. So we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to prove to the city that this recreational park is going to benefit the community? If we can demonstrate that in our writing, the city will very likely listen to what we have to say. So looking at the test instructions themselves, we notice right away that a sports complex will be included in this park. And as soon as I can imagine a sports complex in town, I immediately think of all of those physical exercise health benefits that the residents will enjoy if they have access to the sports complex. So physical health is going to be my first main reason why this park should be built. All right. Second main reason, I'm going to return to my instructions again. And I need to mention at some point in my writing that there will be a large green area and a petting zoo. And I can imagine families, friends, couples, children playing around in that green area and at the zoo. When we're spending time together with people we enjoy and we're relaxing and we're socializing and connecting, I can make a case that this is going to really support strong mental health. So these 2 reasons here, physical health and mental health, those are going to be the 2 main reasons why I feel the city should develop this park. These 2 ideas will then form the topic of the middle paragraphs. So this is your starting point before you even start writing the survey. Come up with the reasons why you feel this way. Okay, so We're going to take those ideas and plunk them into a sentence now. This is our first paragraph. It's one sentence. It's an opening statement. It says, I strongly believe that the green space in town should be developed into a recreational park because the park would support the citizens' physical and mental well-being. It's not perfect. It's a bit rough with the vocabulary, but that's my idea. That's my opinion, and that's why I feel that the park should be built. So this is your starting point. Now, before we continue with the supporting details, we also have to keep in mind that part of our score is going to come from the vocabulary that we use in our answer. So the raters want to see really accurate and precisely used words. We're trying to avoid very general, vague ideas, and we certainly don't want to repeat the same words over and over again. We don't want to repeat words from the test instructions either. We need to impress the raters with our own vocabulary. So that's really a huge goal here throughout the writing. The words that we use, of course, have to be suitable too. So let's return to that first statement that we've just written down. Let's compare that quickly against the test instructions. So these 2 points at the bottom were exactly what the test was asking us to do. And when I do a quick little skim read, I notice that the test instructions uses the wording green area twice. And in my opening statement above, I referred to this space as a green space. Green space is a little simple, a little common, and it's very close to the wording from the test instructions. Furthermore, in my own writing up top, I've used the expression in town. And as you can see in the instructions below, that's also very similar to what the test said as well. They said in the center of town. So I think before I write my middle paragraphs, I should take a very quick second to improve the quality of my opening statement. It, after all, does set the tone for my entire piece. So rather than refer to this as a green space, I'm going to get specific. I'm going to name the city or the town in which I'm referring to, and I'm even going to give a little location. So I've replaced that very general idea with this underlined phrase. So now my opening says, I strongly believe that Pembroke's vacant lot behind Sewell's Marina should be developed into a recreational park. Now, Pembroke is the name of a very small town that I actually lived in my early 20s, way back when. So I'm referring to my own life experience to help guide my writing. And this is one of the easiest ways for all of you as well to come up with ideas quickly. Write about what you know. That's the best way to go. Sewell's Marina is also the name of a real marina from my hometown in Northern Ontario. So I threw that in because that name was at the top of mind. You'll notice that instead of referring to a green space, I'm now talking about this vacant lot. So again, I've changed up the vocabulary and made it a little bit more interesting at the same time. So I feel that this opening is off to a much better start. As I continue to read, I notice that it's a little bit wordy, a little bit clunky. So I'm quickly going to revise this as well. So now I'll say that I firmly believe that this vacant lot should be developed into a recreational park to support the citizens' physical and mental well-being. So by removing that phrase in the middle, I've cut down on that awkward wordiness and I've written more concisely. I've gotten right to my point without all these useless words in the middle. And that's also partly what the raters are going to look for you to demonstrate all the way through your writing. So we've revised our opening statement. I think it's strong, it's good to go. Let's continue writing now with the main part of the survey. So we're looking at paragraph 2 next. This is going to discuss the first main reason that you identified above. So when you refer back to this opening statement that we just worked on, the first reason that we cited here is the physical well-being. So because we've listed this idea first in the opening, this is the main idea that we're going to talk about first in the middle part of the survey. So the topic of this second paragraph is all about the physical well-being of the citizens. And again, I go back to the testing instructions. So remember, the physical exercise that we're going to get at this park will come from the sports complex. So the sports complex comes right from the test instructions, but now I need to come up with my own examples of how we're going to get physical exercise at this complex. So when I do my writing, I'm going to use a different word than sports complex. Let's try stadium. It means the same thing, but at least it's my own vocabulary. And it's really easy to think of a couple examples of some team sports that we might play there. So I might mention things like baseball and soccer as I write my survey. All right, other physical exercise that we might gain could be done at this green area. So I live downtown Vancouver, very close to Stanley Park. And on a daily basis, I like to go for walks and runs throughout the park. And as a child, I remember going down to different parks at home and playing some lawn games with my friends. So we would play badminton and croquet and sports like that. So again, I'm drawing on my own personal life experience to help guide the specific details of this response. It's just the easiest way to come up with these ideas very quickly. So with these specific examples there on a note, and I would write these out actually. During the test administrators will give you paper and pen. So just jot down some of these ideas so they're facing you. And when we open this paragraph, we're going to introduce the topic first, which is about physical exercise. So I'd like to make one statement first to really emphasize to the city that physical exercise is beneficial. So I'll just make a blanket statement like so. Physical exercise improves cardiovascular health and strengthens muscles. So who doesn't want that, right? Hopefully the city will read this and say, yeah, that sounds great. How can we get our citizens healthy? So I'm going to refer now to my notes at the bottom and add in these details. I'll start with the example about team sports. So in sentence form, it might look like this. If a sports stadium is constructed within the park, residents could play baseball, soccer, and other team sports. There, so I'm done with that idea from my outline. I can cross it off. I now want to talk about this green area. So my sentence there might look like this. A nearby green space would allow residents to walk, run, and play lawn games like badminton and croquet. There, so again, I'm just taking my own words from my own notes and I'm inserting them into sentence form above. So for me, at least, making a note before I start writing makes the writing really quick because I've already got my ideas at hand. So the bulk of my supporting details are finished there in paragraph 2. I think I'd like to add one more concluding sentence, though, at the end of this paragraph to really emphasize to the city why they need to build this recreational park. That is the whole purpose of this writing, after all. I need to persuade them to build this park. So I'll add this last statement. It says, building a recreational park that is free to access increases the likelihood that community members will lead a healthy lifestyle. There, so that second paragraph is finished. And as you can see, it is only about 3 or 4 sentences long. So that's fine. I still have another middle paragraph to go and only 200 words to write. So I probably could say much more about physical exercise, but I won't have the time or the word count to do so. So this is fine. Acceptable. Returning back now, this was our opening statement, which we've already examined. We're ready to move on to the third paragraph. And that third paragraph then is simply going to identify that second main reason. So you can see from our opening that we cited mental well-being second. So again, that's why we're talking about mental health second in the survey. We're following the same order that we established up top. This creates really strong unity throughout your piece. So the entire topic then for this third paragraph is all about the mental well-being of these citizens of Pembroke, of the town that I'm writing about. So once again, I'm going to return to that test option. This is right in the instructions on the test. Now, I know that I've already mentioned this large green area as I talked about physical exercise, but I can also connect it into mental well-being and support as well. So I think when we are out with people that we enjoy and we're socializing and we're connecting and we're sharing our days, that's a really strong way to feel that connection and to support this mental health. So I'm going to really emphasize that in this paragraph. And some examples of social activities you might do in a large green park could be picnics, you could be watching the sunset. So you can imagine the relaxed and calm state of mind you would have if you were doing these activities in your leisure time. And again, these are activities that I enjoy doing in my personal life. So I'm using my personal experiences to guide the writing here again. Now, the small petting zoo is mentioned in the instructions, so I really need to mention it at least once in my writing. This won't be as strong of an idea, but I'll maybe just make a small comment about how families can spend time together at the zoo. They can visit the animals, which is a relaxing activity. So I'll just mention that in sort of to check that off the list and fully answer this question since it is part of the instructions after all. So to start this paragraph, just like we did earlier, we're going to make an opening statement about strong mental health because this is the topic of this paragraph. So we need to introduce it. And if we can connect it to a benefit for the community, we're on the right track. So we might start by saying strong mental health also improves quality of life. So I'm using also because I'm kind of adding on from my last idea about physical activity. Now, I want to introduce this idea about socializing to connect. I'll do that first before I get to my examples. So my next sentence might say, providing people with a chance to spend quality time together eases stress and loneliness. So now I'm ready for my examples. So I'll start with this green area. I could say, building a recreational park would provide families and friends with an opportunity to socialize outdoors over picnics and sunset strolls. So we're finished with that first idea that we thought of. And we just want to add in this little part about the petting zoo. So I'll start with a conjunction. I'll say, likewise, including a small petting zoo within the park would allow a novel opportunity for young families to bond while visiting the animals. So everything there really supports to connection, which I feel really strongly supports mental health. So I'm finished giving that example. I've now addressed all the instructions on the test. So that's a good thing. I've completely answered the question. I don't feel the need to add a concluding sentence here because right in the middle of my paragraph, I've already emphasized the reason why we need to build this park. So I'm going to leave this paragraph as is. It's structured just a little bit differently than the one above, but I don't feel the need to repeat this idea again in that final sentence since it's already there. So we're almost finished this response. We've finished the first 3 paragraphs. All that is left is the concluding paragraph. And we have to consider now the other dimensions that the raters will be looking for. So the third thing that they're going to assess to give us a score is what we call readability. And this is really how easy it is for them to read and understand what it is we've written on the page. So we're going to do this by organizing our work properly into different paragraphs. So for every main idea discussed, we need its own paragraph. That's really important. Within the paragraphs, hopefully we've got some connections, either conjunctions or transitions, to smoothly connect these ideas together. And even between paragraphs, the whole piece should flow very smoothly together. Our grammar and spelling and things, of course, need to be correct. And our sentence structure as well should be complex. It should show a good variety. So we don't want to write just in short, simple sentences. We'll impress the raters more by demonstrating a range. So some compound, some complex, some different structures. That's what we're aiming for. So I guess in order to assess this properly, we can very quickly have a look at the 2 middle paragraphs there that we've written. So the one about physical exercise is up top, and the one about the mental health is at the bottom. And as we do a really quick scan through, I am seeing evidence of different sentence structures, I guess. I'm just going to pull out the laser pointer so we can have a closer look together. So I'm starting off with a simple sentence, right? I've got one subject and one verb. But here I've got a conjunction that establishes a complex structure. And this is an if clause. It's a conditional as well. So that definitely demonstrates some complexity there. I'm using the correct modal verb to go with that, right? The right verb tenses as well. I've got some relative clauses in here too, and I've got some nice vocabulary. All right, and likewise on the bottom, same idea. I started with a short or a simple sentence structure, but again, I've got some infinitive verb structures. When I look, I've got some nice conjunctions connecting and some complex structures there as well. So I feel that overall, I've got a good variety. The raters should be fairly happy with the range that I'm trying to demonstrate there. All right, so let's move on. Let's look at our concluding paragraph. This should be really easy and really fast to write. That's the good news. You're almost finished, but you're not coming up with any new ideas in your conclusion, not ever. The point of the conclusion is to literally restate or remind the reader, I guess, of your main point. In this case, we need to remind the city that we'd like them to build that recreational park. And then, of course, we're going to summarize the 2 main reasons why we felt that way, which is to support strong physical and mental health. So we'll take these ideas and throw them into a couple of sentences. Something like this would work. So we might say, remaining physically and emotionally healthy is an attainable goal only if we have the necessary supports in place. Creating a sizable leisure space in town provides opportunities for both exercise and relaxation. So I strongly encourage the city to utilize our available land for this purpose. So do you notice how I basically said the same thing, the same idea that I started with in my opening, but I've changed the vocabulary so that I'm not repeating. So instead of saying recreational park, I'm saying leisure space. Instead of saying strong physical and mental health, I'm using words like exercise and relaxation. Okay, so again, you want to vary the vocabulary so that you have a nice range there. That's going to help a lot. So we're basically done now. That's our draft. Okay, so the last thing we need to consider, the raters are going to double check that we have completely answered the question. And I know we have. All points in the instructions that we were asked to talk about are in there. We made sure of that. All the details that we spoke about here today, that we wrote about, are relevant. They're on topic and they support the opinion of building this park. So I'm very confident with the relevance and the completeness of this particular answer we've written. The tone, we need to double check. Your tone is conveyed through the choice of words you use. So I just want to make sure that we don't sound demanding or bossy as we're asking the city to build this park. So we'll double check our language that we've used. And we also want to look at the word count too. So let's start with the word count right at the bottom. Did we ever get lucky here? The word count is meant to be 200 words, and we've come in right at 199. So it doesn't usually get any better than that. I will let you in on a small secret, so to speak. The raters will be flexible to a point, so they will allow you to go 10% over that word count limit. So you could effectively write up to 220 words, and you would not be penalized. So really at 199 words, we're still well within the limit here. We're just fine. Before we submit this work and be proud of the effort that we've done on the test, hopefully you have saved yourself about 2 or 3 minutes on the timer, because it's super wise to proofread the entire work. Make sure it's as strong as you can get it before time is up. So again, as we were writing and skim reading it through, I didn't notice any major grammatical errors that we needed to fix. I'm a little concerned though about my vocabulary use. So what I'd like to do quickly is skim read quickly the instructions on the test again. And these particular words that the test instructions use, so words like large green area, recreational park, and sports complex, these are words that I should be able to come up with my own synonyms or paraphrased ideas. So I'm going to quickly skim read my own writing and make sure I didn't use these words too much. It's okay to use them once in a while, but we just want to make sure we haven't exclusively repeated those words over and over. Otherwise, that will hurt our score for vocabulary. As far as the small petting zoo goes, I can't really offhand think of another way to express that idea without changing the meaning of the term. I only mentioned the small petting zoo once in my writing, so I think I'm just going to leave those words as is, even though they are the same in the question. Again, just because if I said, a zoo, that's different than a petting zoo. So I think I'll just leave it alone and hope for the best on that one. So I've already proofread this really quickly to save some time today. On the test, you would skim read. And the very first thing I noticed about my own writing is how many times I use the words recreational park or park. So I've highlighted these in yellow so that we can easily identify them. I think it's okay to use that phrase once. I'll suggest that we just keep the opening line the way it is. So recreational park is, after all, the option that we're choosing. So using it there in the opening, I think is okay. But then throughout the other 2 paragraphs there, we really should change our vocabulary to create this variety. So looking at paragraph 2, where I've got recreational park, I can think of a couple of different ways to say that. So I might try this. So I'll use green letters there to demonstrate the revision. We could say building an outdoor leisure area, right? That's different than recreational park. I remember my closing, I referred to it as a leisure space. So the words are different enough. So I'm happy with that revision and I'll leave that there. What I'm not happy about though in this sentence is how, again, wordy it is. It's a bit clunky or awkward. So I've got building an outdoor leisure area that is free to access. That's just a little bit awkward. So what I'd like to do, I think, is I'm going to remove that phrase that I've underlined. And instead, I'm going to use the adjective form of the word access. You see where I put it in my sentence? I've rewritten this. I'm now saying building an accessible outdoor leisure area increases the likelihood that community members will be healthy. So I feel that this revision is less wordy, it's more precise, it's more concise, and the word accessible is a nice, strong vocabulary word. So I've really improved a whole pile of skills there with that one little revision. I like this much, much better. I'm going to leave the word park in that paragraph. You can see I just underlined it because I haven't used the word park now anywhere else. So I feel I'm okay to use it once in a while. So I've eliminated that repetition within that paragraph. The one I'm stuck on, though, is green space. I know the test instructions refer to a green area, so my word is a little bit different. And truthfully, I haven't used the words green space anywhere else. Do you know what? For time's sake, I think I'm just going to keep it in. My idea says a nearby green space would allow residents to walk and run. You know, if I was to say a nearby park, well, I'm creating repetition again. So I'm just going to leave that as is. And I feel I've revised enough ideas here that it's better anyway. So we'll move on to that third paragraph before the timer, of course, would reach 0. So once again, we've got this word recreational park. And again, the word park. Oh, you know what? I've just caught another repetition. Sorry, I'm going to go back to one more repetition here. Within my own sentence, I've used the word sports twice. So this is actually an easy fix. I'm going to just reword sports stadium as athletics arena. Sure, that works, right? So in the arena, we can play team sports. So we'll do that instead. Moving on now to paragraph 3, where I've got recreational park. I need yet another way to express that. You know, does this work? Community park? I think that's similar. So let's go with that at least. One more repetition that catches my eye is here. I've used the same structure in both of my paragraphs where I've said building a community park. Maybe this would work. So constructing a community park. So again, I eliminated my own repetition. And last but not least, I've got one more example of the word park to fix. So including a petting zoo within the grounds would allow an opportunity for families. There, I think the idea is the same. The vocabulary is different. So overall, I'm improving the quality of the writing by eliminating these pesky little repetitions. Okay, one last thing to check. Remember we mentioned about tone. Up at the top there, I said, I strongly believe. And in the bottom, in my conclusion, I've said, I strongly encourage. I think my tone is okay. It's assertive, it's confident and direct. I don't think it sounds bossy or rude. So I'm going to keep the request as is, but I will change the adverb. I've used the word strongly twice now. So I'll just rewrite one of them. So in the opening, I'll change that to I firmly believe. And then in the bottom, I can leave it as I strongly encourage. Okay, so all said and done, when you're doing this on the test and proofreading, this should be a fairly quick process. We've talked about it out loud. It's taken quite some time to get through it. But these are the types of skills or factors that I'm hoping you're looking for as you read back your writing. The vocabulary in particular, you want to make sure that it's varied and precise. So it's going to help the quality overall of the writing. And as you can see, when we've made these revisions, our word count at the bottom is just a slight bit shorter now. It's 196 words. All right, so we're still within the range, so that would be fine. We have fulfilled the task fulfillment and will not lose any marks for that. So to finish up today then, something I can leave you with as you're studying maybe at home is a time management plan. So we all know going into task 2 for writing on CELPIP, you're going to have 26 minutes total from start to finish. So reading over that test question, so understanding the situation with the background context and making your selection, choosing that option. I'm hoping that does not take more than 30 seconds to do. You need to be decisive, pick an option and start thinking about it. Please do not spend 5 minutes going back and forth wondering which option to choose. Make a decision, don't change your mind once you've begun, and continue writing. You're right, otherwise I worry you might not finish. So the decision's made quickly, and then you should be able to come up with your ideas within another couple of minutes or so, even 2.5 minutes. So remember for this one, we immediately looked at the test instructions and figured that if we could write about strong physical health and strong mental health, we have 2 solid reasons right there why the park is beneficial. It took no time at all to pull those ideas out of the test instructions. All right, it might have taken another minute or so to come up with our own examples, But really, thinking of examples of physical exercise really wasn't that hard when we looked at the test instructions. So when we saw a sports arena was going to be built there, it wasn't too much of a leap to suggest some team sports that we would play and so on. Okay, so again, build on your own personal life experience to help you fill that out. But I would encourage you to write out your ideas on that note paper that the test administrators will give you. So if that's facing you while you're typing, you will stay on topic. You won't veer off. So if you spend, say, the first 3 minutes just getting your ideas together and organized, so you know which order you're going to talk about, you'll have a full 20 minutes or so to write out the entire survey response. Remember, you're only aiming for 200 words. The opening paragraph can be a standalone sentence that identifies your option and your ideas. So that should not take too long to write. Your conclusion just restates your opinion and your main reasons using different words. So again, that should not take too long to write because you're not thinking of new ideas. Most of your time for writing will be spent developing your 2 middle paragraphs. So that's where you're giving the examples that support the main ideas you've come up with. So within 20 minutes, that should be sufficient amount of time to complete a 200-word response. Hopefully then, if you follow that time plan, you've got about 3 minutes left on the clock, and that should be enough time to skim read from top to bottom. If you've done a very detailed job of following your outlined ideas, really all you're checking for at this point are maybe some writing and grammar issues and some vocabulary adjustments like what we did. So in 3 minutes, you should have a pretty good opportunity to make little improvements here and there so that when the work is submitted, it represents your best work that you can be proud of. So that's one way to complete this response. There are many ways you can approach any piece of writing. We have to keep that in mind. But I'm hoping that today you've got some ideas at least about how you might structure your survey response and how you might even come up with your ideas. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here now, and I will return to you and answer any questions, I guess, if we have any to come in. I'll leave that to Ashwati. I'm sorry, I meant to say I couldn't see your questions while I was presenting. I meant to say that earlier. So now I can answer whatever you want to know.
Boy, do we have questions. Okay. I'm going to start with like the most recent one just because it's easier for me to like show it. So we have one from Shobit Singh. Oh, wait, that's not the right question. Here. Can we use I strongly recommend instead of I strongly encourage in the last paragraph? Will it sound affirmative and not bossy?
I love it. I strongly recommend. You're sounding confident. You are sounding assertive, but when we give an opinion, we do want to sound confident and very sure of ourselves. So I think that's great. You wouldn't want to say things like, you absolutely must build this park right now. That would be bossy, right? But yeah, I strongly recommend. I strongly encourage. Yeah, those excellent suggestions, Shobit. I hope our other listeners as well might internalize that and sort of tuck it away in their own minds. Great idea. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Shobit, for your questions. Here's another one from Anand. Could we use in conclusion or in summary to start off the third paragraph?
You could, for sure. Now, these transitions, when we say in conclusion or in summary, they are a little bit more on the common everyday usage of the structures for transitions. So again, when we first start to write anything, I think we base our organizational patterns on the basics, like first of all, secondly, third, in conclusion. So that's a really nice way to start. I think once we've got that down pat, we've got that structure, look at different ways to get across your concluding paragraphs. Change it up so that you're not sounding like you're using that scripted template response. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, like when you look at a lot of different answers, you might see in conclusion. So it's used so often that for me, I would take some time at home to see if I can come up with my own unique style to demonstrate to the raters that I've got different ways to express that. So this is a good starting point, but play around with your words and see if you can experiment with different openings just to make a variety. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And I hope that answers your question, Anand. I see that you have more. We'll get to it. Here's another one from Shobit as well. It's a long one. If we have only one reason to support our choice, should we go by our idea to support our choice in second paragraph and by writing 1 point against the other option in third paragraph?
Okay, so you're asking two things, so I'll address them separately if I may. I think for the survey answer, you should have at least 2 very strong reasons why your choice is the better one. I would not rely just on one reason. All right, 2 at the minimum demonstrates that your option's a good one. Another technique that you might use for this answer, I chose not to do that today, but you could certainly, if it works into your writing, make a comment about how the other option that you're not writing about is weaker. Okay, so just to demonstrate how I might have done that with my own examples today, talking about the physical health, right? So when I'm writing all about the team sports we might play in the sports complex, within that paragraph, I might have just added half of an idea to say, if the shopping complex is built, sure, residents will get walking exercise, but they won't be able to run around the mall and strengthen their muscles in the same way that they would if they were playing team sports. So building the sports complex is a much better way to achieve that. So that would be an example of demonstrating the persuasive technique that Shobit is talking about here. That technique, by the way, is called answering the opposition. So sometimes to win an argument, you always start off by explaining how your point is strong. You usually come out with at least a couple of reasons why your idea is the best one. And then you might throw in one example of why the other one's weak. But you always bring it back to your own idea at the end, okay? If you don't, what ends up happening is you've got a disjointed piece. We don't want to write half the essay about how my idea is so great and the other half about how the other idea is terrible, right? That's not solid writing. It lacks the unity. Okay, so does that make sense? Do it sparingly. Don't dwell. Don't spend a lot of time on the other option. And frankly, in 200 words, you're not going to have a lot of time to even mention the other choice. So do it sparingly, once in a while, if you'd like to. Focus 80% of your attention on why your choice is the best one. That would be the better way to go, I think, in the time constraints and the word count that you have to work with for this task.
Thank you, Brandy. Some of the things that you said reminded me of debates in school. Very similar tips. So the next question is a very common question that we're getting by a lot of people in the comment section. Farhad asked it first, so I'm going to show it here.
Yeah, you can have, there's no rule, there's no recipe for the number of paragraphs you must have. So keep in mind, the reason we start a new paragraph is because we have a new main idea to discuss. So let's just say, we'll take Farhad's example. If you've got 5 paragraphs, there's my hand. The first one is your introduction and the last one's your conclusion, right? So that means you've got 3 middle paragraphs. That means you have 3 main reasons why your choice is the best. If you've got the word count to do that and the time to do that, great. But I'm telling you that the writing I did today, and I timed myself, of course, when I wrote it, I got it done in the nick of time. And I had 2 main ideas with 2 paragraphs to support. It might be a stylistic choice. I myself like to have extra supporting details around the main points. That's where I like to focus. I'd rather do it that way than to have more main ideas that aren't supported very well. So sometimes it's a bit of a stylistic choice. But yeah, to answer your question again, if you want to squeeze in a 3rd main idea to have that 3rd body paragraph, it's doable, but you need to finish in 26 minutes and under 200 words. So just keep that in mind.
Brandy, I have another question based on what you just said, which I think may be something that people are looking at, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It almost makes like the point you're trying to make is that the idea is what is more important than how many number of paragraphs or how many kind of like pieces you have on your paper. Is that correct? They're
actually, those 2 things are almost the same thing. So the number of paragraphs you have match the same number of main ideas you have.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, it's just the rules of writing. Each main idea requires its own separate paragraph. So, if you only had short little supporting details for main idea 1, maybe you got the time and the word count to develop longer supporting details in 2 other paragraphs. But you can't just take one idea and write about it in 4 separate paragraphs. That's not the way that any piece is written. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess that's what I was asking. An idea, that's what I was asking. You answered it.
One main idea, 1 paragraph. Support it, move on.
Got it. Here's another question by Farhad as well, another popular one in this chat here.
Yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. Yes and yes. Your introduction again for the CELPIP task is, it can be a standalone sentence. The raters won't mind. In regular, you go to college, university, you're taught one sentence is not a paragraph. For this particular task, your opening can be a standalone sentence, provided it introduces or identifies the option you're choosing to write about, in our case, the recreational park. And you should be introducing the main reasons why you feel that way. That's done in the opening. As soon as your reader sees that, they know exactly what the rest of your piece is going to be about. So your job as a writer is to make it really easy for the reader to understand what's coming next and how the ideas fit together. Can you imagine launching right into the body paragraph? Imagine the first thing you read today was all about physical health really makes residents more. You wouldn't really know what I was talking about probably till I got to the end of my entire piece. So make it easy on the raters who are giving you the score. Tell them option, main ideas, develop that into the body paragraphs too. The raters are looking to see the conclusion as well. Again, it can be short, but when this is technically, it's a bit of a persuasive piece, right? You're wanting, in this case, the city to adopt your idea. So you should be finishing off your entire piece by reminding them what it is you want them to do. So please build this part because it will help our, keep us fit and healthy. Say that at the end, and it just sort of brings your argument back full circle and emphasizes the points that you're trying to make. So definitely structure your writing that way for sure.
Thank you. Here's another question from Anu. How important is it to give an example in support of my reason?
Very, very important. Extremely important. As important as you can get. If you're just giving a couple of general main ideas, that's going to hurt your score, particularly under the content areas. So remember, the raters want to see the quality of your ideas and how well you're able to support and extend them. So the test instructions will help you along the way with some of those main ideas. So again, remember today, it wasn't too hard for us to say, the recreational park will help us physically and mentally. We could extrapolate that from the test instructions, right? The challenging part is coming up with how are we going to accomplish that? So that's what's really going to separate the low or middle levels of the CELPIP score into those higher levels. So to start achieving a level 9 and up, you're going to want to have more examples of complexity, complex ideas, complex vocabulary, complex grammar. So to achieve that, you absolutely must be giving specific examples. So again, remember when we started, my opening statement was very vague. It just said, we should make the green space in town into a recreational park. So everyone understands the idea, but it's simple and it's almost a little bit uninteresting. As soon as we get specific and we say, behind Sewell's Marina in Pembroke, we should use the vacant lot to turn it into a recreational park. You can really see the difference in complexity there. So the improved version is going to be heads above in score for the content area. If we can maintain that kind of detail all the way through, you'll find that people who are achieving a higher level score are much more capable of demonstrating that kind of specific detail. So work on that. If that's an area of weakness for any of you at home today, work on that because it will show improvement, I hope anyway, in all the writing you do, not just for CELPIP.
Wonderful. Thanks for that detailed answer, Brandy. Anu, I'm sure that helped you. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. We are running a little short on time, so I'm going to go through them quickly. Here's a question from Charles. Is it okay to start with dear or hello and end the passage with a signature?
That's actually a fair question, Charles. A lot of test takers for CELPIP actually do structure their survey like an email. So remember on the CELPIP writing test, task 1 asks you to write an email. And then for task 2, some people are, I think, just in that frame of mind and they continue and they structure it as an email. And that's okay. The raters are not going to penalize you if you even write the entire survey as an email. So if you wanted to start this with attention city officials, ... write out your paragraphs and finish it with, what was Shobit's idea? I strongly recommend that you build the park, blah, 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 blah. Sincerely, Brandy, or sincerely, Charles. That's perfectly acceptable. So you have some options there. I chose to write mine in paragraph form. Again, that's stylistically what I'm used to. So I made it easy on myself. But if you wanted to frame this almost like an email with that dear, and then your body paragraphs and the signature, that's okay too. You're not going to lose marks either way, provided you've got all the details that we've been talking about. Yeah, good question. So, Dashwadi.
Sorry, guys. This has to happen at least one episode. Otherwise, it's unlucky for me. This is like a good luck charm. Anyway, what I was saying. Oh yeah. So people who are watching, if you want help with like writing task 1, we've also done a separate video before this. Brandy was here as well doing an episode on writing task 1. Please do check it out. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Brandy Shobit watched your episode and he has a question regarding our episode. I'm just going to share it here. This is task 1,
Sure.
not task 2. Brandy mentioned to use the approach of answering the 5 W's for writing task question 1. 5 W's are who, where, what, when, and why. If somehow a person is unable to identify the answer to all of them, that's half a question.
Yeah, I think I understand what he's asking. In other words,
he's confused about what to write in these questions. How should we follow the correct approach?
Yeah. So the 5 W's, the who, what, where, when, why, these are those sort of the background context of any situation that generally adds interest and also helps the reader anchor the scene and understand what's going on. It's not absolutely crucial to identify all 5 of those. So I know when, if you saw last episode that we did with the email, we were writing to a restaurant manager to complain about really bad service and food. That was the situation we were writing about. So in the opening, we took a moment to explain to the restaurant manager who we were at the restaurant with and when we went there. So these were some of those W questions we added in. There might be certain situations where you honestly don't know, or you just don't have the time to get that detailed, and that's okay. I guess it's up to you, the writer, to discern or to figure out which details your reader needs to have in order for it to make sense. So for our writing, the restaurant manager, they would have needed to know who was there, maybe how much we spent, and when we went. Those details are crucial. Otherwise, how are they going to help resolve our issue and give us a refund, right? So it sort of comes down to a bit of a judgment call, sometimes on the writer's behalf. Another test taker last week, I can't remember their name, it was such a good question, was asking about how much do we consider the connection with the reader? And that's really it. That's the key to any successful piece of writing. You're always considering how the reader is going to react to your piece of writing. You're always asking yourself, have I given enough information so that the reader can read the entire thing and understand exactly what it is I'm asking and why I'm asking? If you can answer yes to those questions, then you've got enough detail. It's not absolutely necessary to add more and more extra information, especially on a test when you've got a time limit. Okay, so include what you need to have. If you've got time for some extra description, great, you're not going to hurt anything. But put all these things together when you're deciding. It sort of comes down to time too, doesn't it, Ashwati? Like again, on 26 minutes, do you have time to do all 5 W's, Maybe not, so you'll have to make that call on the test as well.
Thank you, Randy. Sorry, I like to pay attention to your answers as much as possible, but we are getting like a lot of questions here, and I'm trying to make sure that I ask the one that's right, like that follows what you're talking about. So here's the next one. How important is it to add idioms in writing, from Sahil?
That again, Sahil, it's a very timely question because once again, it's going to depend who you're writing to. So idioms tend to be a lot more casual, right? So in conversation, we maybe would be more likely to speak with friends and people we know well. I think in writing, it's like the one we did today, where we're writing the city officials to ask them to make a change to the park and the landscape, I wouldn't use any idioms myself. I worry that by using idioms, it makes it too casual and it distracts away from the confidence of my direct request. So in that, when you're writing a stranger or a person in a position of authority, like a city council or the restaurant manager, like we did last week, I myself would err on the side of caution and not use any idioms at all. If you're writing to a friend to invite them to the movies, go for it. Use some natural idioms that make sense in that situation. So again, you always need to consider your audience and choose the correct formality based on the situation.
Okay, thank you. We have one last question from Anu. This is the last question, guys. We have another episode, which I'll talk about a little later. Can you use you while making a point?
Can you use you?
This is a good question. I mean,
yeah.
It's interesting because I also worry about this even when I'm writing emails. I'm like, can I say you? Is that okay? Would that be too direct?
The rule of thumb, we're more, when we're trying to come across as, again, authoritative or confident and ask for a big request, we're taught to try not to use personal pronouns. So we're trying not to use words like you and I. Well, that doesn't even ring true. You know, Anna, you kind of stumped me. It's hard to answer this question without seeing a specific case. In the writing we did today, we didn't use you at all, right? Because we weren't effectively addressing. I guess I don't, because it's not my personal style. Sometimes if you're using you and you're addressing the reader personally, if you don't know them very well, would the reader get a little bit offended or uncomfortable? Do you know what I mean? Like, does it feel a bit too personal when you haven't met the person and you're saying, you do this, you do that? I kind of would make the reader uncomfortable if you didn't know them well. I'd probably avoid using you then in that case while making a point. Try to base your ideas more on the examples you have at hand. And you can personalize it with your own ideas. Like, I strongly encourage the city to do this. But yeah, I probably would avoid using you myself.
I'm wondering, and maybe this is not what Anu meant. Anu, if you have an example of what you're talking about, if you're still watching this, please just let us know quickly. But what I'm trying to think is, can you use you in the paragraph while making a point in a general way, like how you use one, or like one can't comfortably walk in the park, or something like, you know, if this happens, you can't walk in the park comfortably. I'm not sure if that's what she meant, but this is something that I had a question about.
I think like pronouns in general, I would probably try to use the specific noun that you're referring to, just because it's a more precise vocabulary word. So instead of saying you in the example we wrote today, we could see like the citizens of the town or the residents could enjoy their exercise. Like, even those words, you know, residents, citizens, they're just so much more precise and interesting than you. You can get exercise, right? So I think you would elevate actually the level of vocab and even create a more sophisticated tone by avoiding these simple pronouns. I would always use that specific word or noun instead when you can. So that's a better clarification, Ishwati. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Anu. You really made me work for that one today. I had to really think about what you meant. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, and I hope that's what I asked was, I mean, if it's not what you meant, please let me know. I know it was just something that crossed my mind. But anyway, thank you, Brandy, for joining us and answering all our questions this episode. And your class was great. A lot of people are thanking you. Sahil says thank you. Charles says thank you as well. Really enjoyed the episode. So thank you to Brandy for joining us.
As an aside, if you have any ideas for what you'd like to see next, I'll be back in a month and I'm open for suggestions. So let me know what you'd like to work on next. We've done the 2 writing tasks. So if you want to do some speaking or whatever, just let me know and I'll see what I can do.
So sorry, Mandy. We said official bias, but Anu just came back from an example. So she says, for example, when we are giving a reason to support our choice, can we address the council as you?
Okay, yeah, no, I wouldn't address the council as you. It just seems too impersonal and you don't know them. It's a bit, I think you'd risk offending someone. You know, like, who is this person that doesn't even know me and they're getting on personal terms with me? That's how I worry the reader might react. So yeah, I would avoid that if you can.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm so glad we were able to like swoop in and clarify that. But again, thank you, Brandy, for joining us.
See you next time.
So that was Brandy, as you all know. Again, if you have any more questions, please let us know in the comments below. Like we answered Shobha's question from past episodes, we're okay with doing that. And more importantly, if you have suggestions and if you have requests of anything specific you'd like to ask or you'd like Brandy to talk about, please let us know. For example, the way that Shobha has asked us here, we'll try to accommodate all your requests as possible. In fact, some of your videos may have already been done on CELPIP Live, so please do check that out as well. But feel free to comment below anything specific that you'd like to watch. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. So that's with Brandy, and that's it for the lesson today, but I haven't forgotten our trivia question. Who was Agnes MacPhail? Agnes Campbell MacPhail was a Canadian politician from Ontario who was the country's first ever female member of parliament, first elected to the House of Commons in 1921. very late, if I do say so myself. But with that, I also want to wish everyone a happy International Women's Day. Thank you for joining us and subscribing to our channel. Like I said, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anybody else you think might find it useful. A quick note for those of you who are still here, we're providing resume tips for new grads looking for job opportunities in Canada on our student channel, KL Live. So if you want to join us, please do. We're on at 11 a.m. That's half an hour from now. Lastly, we have some exciting news for you. We've opened 2 new locations in India and 1 in Singapore. If you're in India, you can now take the test in Hyderabad, Chennai, New Delhi, Ahmedabad, and Chandigarh. We're working hard to open more centers in other locations, so do stay tuned. I know a lot of you are requesting new places, and we are trying to be available for all of you, so please do stay tuned. And if you also gave the CELPIP test and want to share your journey, you can reach out to us at communications@paragontesting.ca. We might ask you to share your journey with our future test takers. Our next episode will be on March 23rd. So if you have any questions you couldn't get answered, please leave it in the comments below, or you can also reach out to us at communications@paragontesting.ca, and we will address it on our next episode. You can also suggest topics like I mentioned. Please also consider connecting with us through any of our social media channels. All updates will be posted there first, so do consider following us. Until our next episode, please stay safe and have a nice day. Bye.